any issues in terms of injuries or illness as well ahead of Leeds?
No. Dan's watching a programme back there.
All right, Dan.
You must. I'm going to say it'll be a box set or something.
We'll interrupt him for a little while. Are you anything on the injuries or illness front ahead of Leeds, Paul?
No, as we were. I think Miles is the only one really who's missing, apart from the sort of longer term injuries. So that's good from my point of view. A squad to make some decisions about.
How far off is Miles? Will we see him before the next break, do you think?
Possibly. I think it'd be touch and go though, so we'll see. But you don't want to rush hamstrings back. I think the initial diagnosis was sort of a couple of weeks, so there's a possibility.
I think we saw on Saturday, is Chris Hogg having a bit more involvement with the first team nowadays?
Yes, I've asked Chris to come and work with the first team and do some coaching with us. I think being impressed with him and Gerard in terms of the work they've done, and I just felt that with Chris, just a different voice, something different. Obviously a relationship with some of the younger players in the squad as well, that it would be beneficial, so we've asked him to come and work with us.
Is that important? You're obviously trying to progress players' careers. Is it the same for coaches here at Playford Road?
Yeah, I think when it first came in, that was sort of one of the things that was mentioned about a continuity. Now, kind of what I said from the start is, I don't mind that idea at all, but it's got to be, I've got to think that they're the right sort of people to do that as well. Point just saying, oh, let's do it, and actually don't think it'd be good enough. So, taking a bit of time to look at it and seeing how the lads work. And I think, there's some good coaches here, that's for sure, and I think it fits with what's sort of, I think the owner wanted. For me, it's something different again, and that's something me and Chris have not had the luxury of in the past. So we've just been us two, and I think it'll help the transition for players as well.
And I know some of the soft goals you've let in at the back haven't just been down to the back four, but are you still to find the right blend there, do you think, in your defence?
I don't think that the goals, as you've alluded to, are kind of down to personnel, as in, or an organisation, a structure. It's more individual errors than anything. So I don't think that's really something that I'm worried about in terms of that. Can individual players play better? That yes. But I think from a point of view of being a unit, I don't think that's the case.
Considering a change in goal for this one, or sticking by Dean after the other day?
I've got a few decisions to make, and just speaking there, prior to the game on Saturday, there was always a thought with this week, and the games, the opposition, the travelling, that I would not stick with the same 11. And goalkeepers are no different in my eyes from that point of view. So it's something that I am looking at.
And where's Jonas in your thinking at the moment? He's on the bench. Your two World Cup players are actually on the bench, which does look a bit strange for a team struggling in the division.
Yeah, it may well do to people on the outside. What I would say is they're not here, they're not on the training ground. And Jonas had a long travel last week. Didn't play the game, played near enough the full game, and then had a long travel. I think if you look at Aubameyang, for instance, I think people might think it's strange he's on the sideline and coming off the bench. So these, I think it's easy when you're on the outside to look and think that you can make better decisions, and maybe not have the full story or have seen everything that contributes to managers making decisions.
How would you describe the pressure you're under at the moment?
What's the pressure like? The pressure comes from myself more than anything. The sort of noise from other areas is something that is part and parcel of being a football manager. But realistically, Like I said, I put more pressure on myself than anything. Is it ideal? Of course not. You know, we know that. But at the same time, you know, I've just got to concentrate on the job in hand. If I listen to every opinion, we'd never ever put a team out, because everyone's got a different opinion on who should play, or what formation we should play, everything. So you just got to try and do the job to your best of your ability, and if that in the end is deemed not good enough, at least I can be happy and content. You know, look, like I said, look myself in the mirror and think, if I give everything I can, and I know what the answer will be to that.
How hard are you finding the job? Is it horrible at the moment? You're not dreading coming into work or anything like that?
No, of course not. I've said before, this job, whether it's going good, bad or indifferent, is a good job. It provides its difficulties. I knew some of those going into the job, probably learned some more things along the way. But at the end of the day, you know, you're manager of a championship football club, getting to do something that a lot of people can only dream of, and a lot of people that are, you know, out of work would love to do. So, no, far from you know, dreading coming into work, that's for sure.
And I guess you can't worry about your future. You've just got to push that to one side.
I've said it before. It's not my decision. While ever I'm in the job, I'll give everything to it and try to change our fortunes around.
Did you get some feedback from Marcus? I think he was there on Saturday, wasn't he?
No, I haven't spoken to him since Saturday.
And just in general, how, in terms of the players and the pressure on them at the moment, is that something you're trying to deflect? I mean, they all know the situation, but you don't want them playing with fear, basically, do you?
No, of course not. And someone actually, again, that's not directly involved, said that at the weekend, that they felt that the players looked as though they were almost, you know, scared. And you know, that's not. I honestly don't believe that that's come from myself or the staff. And that's probably more the situation that we find ourselves in. But we've spoke before about needing to be brave, needing character, and there's no doubt that that's what's needed. One, to have a good career, and two, certainly to try and get out of the situation that we're in. So I think it's difficult. What I would say is, as a manager, you have, you know, X amount of influence. And then I've said it before, it's not putting pressure on the players, but they're the ones that go out and perform. You know, are they carrying out exactly what you're asking of them, or are they maybe inhibited, whether it's by fear, lack of form, whatever it is. So we are all in this together. But it's not simply the manager, and it's not simply the players, it's not simply the staff, it's everybody.
You couldn't have asked for a much tougher game, could you, this Wednesday night?
No, you know, I said it some weeks ago, I think when in the build-up to the Brentford game, Brentford and Leeds are the two best teams I've seen consistently. But one or two others certainly have impressed. But I think the way that they've played and the game that they played against each other when we were prior to the Swansea game for ourselves was such a good game of football, with lots and lots to admire from both teams, and you know, we're going to have to be really at our best to make sure that we're competitive tomorrow night. If not, then you know, there's only one outcome.
That's right, because whatever the result, you're just demanding a performance.
Yeah, of course. But look, I want to go there and get, you know, a point or 3 points. But the reality of it is, not many people, if anybody, will expect us to go there and get anything. But we've got to try and prove those people wrong. But Leeds are a very good team with lots of good individuals. Just getting one or two back from injury, and one or two they've lost. So they've had, you know, they're having to deal with that. That's probably made it where they haven't quite got the results they would have liked in some of the games more recently. But again, watching the games, they still had more than enough of those and been unfortunate. So.
And the first 15, 20 minutes key?
No,
It wasn't
95.
Swansea, but
95 or whatever minutes we play tomorrow night will be key. You know, look, you want to try and certainly get through that period without making the task any more difficult. You know, one thing we've certainly got to do is not make basic, silly errors that make the task, you know, more difficult, whether it's Leeds or whether it's QPR that we're playing. But you know, particularly somewhere like that where there's going to be a big crowd, very vocal crowd, a crowd that when things are going well for their team, you know, I think most people would say it's one of the hardest places to go and play. You flip that around, and when things maybe aren't going as well as what you want for the home team, you know, it can be, like I say, reverse that and be difficult for the Leeds players. We've got to try and make it one of those nights.
You said to me post-match on Saturday, the way that Leeds play is the way you'd like to play here. How long is that realistically going to take? Obviously away off at the minute.
Yeah, it is some way, and ultimately you've got to have the players that can do that. And let's be honest, there's a big difference, a big disparity in terms of what they've been able to assemble compared to ourselves. But I just, you know, I like the positivity in the play. I like the way they look after the ball, but the forward runs, the energy. And I think sometimes those are there's certain aspects to the play that aren't simply about you know, money, and that's what we've got to at least try to bring to our game.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Were you hoping that that sort of identity that you spoke about, the style of play, the high press, the energy, there'd be more signs of that by now, Paul? Because obviously it wasn't in evidence on Saturday.
Well, I disagree with some things. I think there's a naivety to some comments in terms of do you not think that we tried to press out of the pitch on Saturday? I would beg to differ. I could show you numerous clips. Did that always work? Or perhaps when we did press and they played it, forced them to play longer, they then had players that got hold of the ball or won the headers, things like that. So I think every game's different. That's something that the players spoke about, and is blatantly obvious. The Swansea game was a lot different to the QPR game. I think it's so you can't always do exactly what you want to do, and some teams come and try different things or set up differently. You can't always be, you know, we're not good enough to play just the way we want to play all the time. That's blatantly obvious. But I think there's some things in terms of an energy to us that I would have hoped would have been there more, that I think has been a little sporadic rather than a constant.
Do you look back at certain moments earlier in the season and think, what if the Rotherham game, I know you've spoken about the whole mood, the whole tone could have been different? Yeah,
I mean that's certainly something that sticks out, but ultimately the season is 46 games long, and you know, we can't just keep looking back, but there are sort of valid sort of points and that you raised that it could have been different. You know, I spoke about, I think when there was a lot of optimism of how that can quickly change, and it, you know, let's not kid ourselves that has changed. But I was the one trying to play that down, and everyone else seemed to want to get excited about that. So, you know, that's just the way it is. But there's certain games I think we could have had more fortune in, whether that's from decisions or maybe that's not fortune, but we could have forced the issue more and made sure that one or two things were different.
You've always talked about not wanting to have any regrets. Whatever pans out, you'll do it your way.
Yeah.
Do you look back on anything so far and think, I wish I'd done anything differently? Or are you comfortable with everything you've done because in your mind you've done it for the right reasons at the right time?
Everything I've done has been for the right reasons. You know, I stand by the sort of thing that I said to you when people question, you know, team selection, things like that. You know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's why people love the game and get involved. But I don't think I will ever be at a point of picking a team that I don't think can do the job and is the right team on the day. That'd be ludicrous to do that. Hindsight's always a wonderful thing. You look at everything. Of course, there's one or two things. I think anyone who says they wouldn't have done anything different will probably be lying. But it was decisions made at certain times for the right reasons. But there may be I should have pushed for certain things to have happened quicker, or there's lots of things at this football club that I would change, and that's not as in putting it down. But I think for the football club to progress, which is kind of why I was brought in, and the talk about changing the football club. So irrespective of whether it's me sat here or someone else, I think there's lots that need to occur here to try to fulfil the desire and hopes of the fans. Because at the minute, with everyone wants to get promoted to the Premiership, is that a reality for Ipswich Town? At this moment in time, I don't believe it is. And the spending power makes life more and more difficult. So to make up for everything that leaves you short of, I think everything else has got to be absolutely on point. And at the minute, I don't think that is.
Can you elaborate on what those things are then, away from spending
No.
power? No. Okay.
That's not a conversation to have in public. That's just, and again, that's not about making excuses or talking about performances in our current league position. What I'm talking about is the progression of the football club. So that's not, again, people jump on that and say, oh, he's looking for excuses. That's not the case.
Talking about the bigger picture rather than, that's regardless of the current league position.
Evolving the football club is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Has the spending power disparity been a surprise to you? You knew, obviously, the makeup of the championship and that it would be different, but has that come as a greater surprise now you're sat here?
Not particularly, because I think what figures are bandied about, and again, you have to be careful of what you always read, because let's be honest, a lot of what's in the papers isn't true. But at the same time, it's pretty obvious. You like your Middlesbrough players, West Brom players, and they have their issues. Obviously, they're having to cut back to a degree. But you know that they're on figures that are probably would take, I don't know, 5 or 6 of our players to get to, perhaps sometimes more, depending which ones we're looking at. But overall, it is, it has proved difficult. There's no getting away from that. And it makes me sort of laugh sometimes. I look at a team that are down there that are moaning about the budget. I think it's double ours in terms of a player going in. We can't get close to that, so it doesn't help. But I'd hope that we could have still made up for that, and at this moment in time, we haven't been able to. But it's still not impossible to change that.
Matt Holland was on the radio speaking passionately about the club's current predicament. I don't know if you heard it last night, but within that, he was expressing his disappointment and concerns, and said that he'd heard that the owner was already speaking to other managers. That must be difficult for you to hear if that's being discussed in a public forum now.
Again, if that's what's happening, then I've got no control over that. So that's, to my knowledge, that's kind of hearsay. If it's happened, only a couple of people will only be the ones that know whether that's true or not. So, I understand what Matt's standing is here, and it's a club he clearly cares about. I understand he was interested in the role, so perhaps he might be the person at some point that gets a go, and we'll see how he gets on with that.
Very best of luck
Thank
tomorrow night.
Another thing Matt said was he talked about recruitment, and recruitment in the summer not being good enough, and he's a player obviously came to Ipswich from Bournemouth, who are then a lower league side. But there was a big ask for so many players to have come from League One and League Two to come coming to the Championship at the same time.
Yeah.
Looking back on that now, do you think perhaps you signed too many of those players at the same time in the summer?
Again, we tried. I think the idea behind that is we're trying to help the club move forward. So I think it was certainly, from memory, what's the correct way of putting it? I think the fans were used to getting a certain type of player and didn't like that. Now we've already got still a group of players here that I think perhaps fit into that category that they're talking about. So, I still think that it was the right way to go. I think he's probably right, as in it's a big ask, but maybe you're looking for some of those to get a little bit more help along the way as you progress. And I didn't expect every one of those ones to come in and play 46 league games, that's for sure. But in time, you're wanting them to contribute at various points, and then, as the seasons move on, that they do become players that are established, because that's all that you've got to have an opportunity first to get to that point. So that's where the thought process for it was at. Again, Matt's entitled to his opinion, and if he's right, he's right. If he's not, then. But again, it's very easy to comment from the outside. It's funny because Steve McLaren was speaking before the game and said he doesn't like anyone really passing comment that much unless they've been in the job themselves, which I thought was interesting from such an experienced manager.
Turning that point on its head, could you say that perhaps too much experience left in the summer? I mean, that's the other side.
Possibly. I know there's been a lot made of the lads that went out. Now, all I will say is each one of those players wanted to leave the football club. You would have to ask them, as in face to face, and whether they be genuine or not, whether they wanted to leave because of me, or whether they wanted to leave because of the football club, or whether they wanted to leave because of the football club that they were going to. I certainly think in Adam Webster's case, I think we'd worked together maybe 2 days, so I'd be very surprised if it was me. In McGoldrick's case, he wasn't on any sheet or budget that I was given. So that leaves 2 players. Joe was clearly wanting to go back home, and Martin Waghorn said, I really like the lad, we got on well, and he found the situation difficult. So unless it's something that they weren't telling me, I think I'm quite comfortable where we're at. And it's easy to say you don't have to let players go, but again I think that's a little bit naive, and maybe not being in the job and around football if you think that saying no, that you would have got the same player that's performed in the past for Ipswich Town.
So as it stands at the moment, you're confident this squad is good enough to avoid relegation, which is obviously the main concern at the moment, isn't it? Not what we talk about, sort of looking further on.
Yeah. No, at the minute, there's no doubt, and that's what another thing I think we've got to kind of, whether we like it or not, accept that that's the situation. Not kind of pretend, we're going to be, just outside playoffs or mid-table. Let's stare the situation, straight on. And I think that's, again, at the minute, I think there's like almost a bit sort of a confusion around the place. Instead of just saying, no, this is what we are. We're at the wrong end of the table, bottom of the table. Not rock bottom, as I've read. I'm not sure how we rock bottom when we got the same points as someone else. And one win could see us move up. But at the same time, that's where we are. So we need to accept that and be willing to do the things required to get out of that situation.
Talking to Freddie just now, and he was saying that he thought maybe at the moment away games suit the town more, the way you set up suited perhaps more to Swansea game. Fans would probably agree with that. Is that something that you can agree with as well?
Not particularly. I think it depends on the opposition. Perhaps contributes to that as well. But one thing I admit I was a little surprised about was clearly we haven't won a game since I've been here at home, but it was interesting to look at the record overall, or this calendar year, that people brought my attention to. That really surprised me because of where we're situated, and yes, it's Championship, and a lot of teams have the luxury of sort of travelling in different ways perhaps, so it's not quite as bad a journey, but it's still often a journey for teams. I think you'd expect Ipswich's own form, just generally, without looking into anything, to be pretty good, and clearly that's not been the case. And I find that really strange because, again, I would suggest that it's not a difficult place for the own players to play. Saturday there was obviously some discontent, but still, I played in a lot worse, or managed it a lot worse. So from that point of view, I do find it strange, and I don't know, maybe people again that have been here longer will have a sort of different thought on that, or a different idea of what it is. It was interesting speaking to a member of staff yesterday. They said they didn't feel like it felt like a big game on Saturday, and not because of the numbers that attended. Clearly it was a good crowd, but just not that feeling. And that's maybe something, again, somehow got to get together to really see the importance of the situation that we're in, and not just maybe think, oh, it's going to be all right, because it won't be if we just think, oh, it'll be all right. That's not how it works.
On Saturday,
Last question, that's all right.
Okay.
Just wanting to.
A lot of fans talk about long balls being punted forward for Freddie, who's obviously not the best in the air, and for obvious reasons. I'm sure that wasn't what you coached on the training ground in the week before. Is that down to confidence and players just not kind of just wanting to get rid of the ball when it comes to feet?
I think that's one of it. I watch it back and I look at some of our decision making, and not quite sure the thought process is going through players' minds. So straight away you look at that and think, well, why is that? And again, despite the victory at Swansea, confidence is the most obvious thing. Are they comfortable? Are they seeing the picture? The longer the game goes, we are losing. That becomes an easier sort of out. There's the other side to it, as in the opposition have an influence in terms of what you're doing as well. But playing a long ball up to Freddie's head is not a way that we're going to win games of football. What about if, for instance, their left back gets the ball, we have a good press on them, he plays a long ball into the channel, and Eze makes a forward run and gets on the ball. That's a good ball, and it's a good run. So again, a long ball can be a good ball, but it's where you put it. I think Danassi played a relatively long ball over the top when Caden came on. Suddenly he's driving into the box and puts it across, and the lad defends the near post well. So there's different ways, but certainly I'm not asking the players just to kick the ball as far as they can, or just above Freddie's head, to make him get tired of thinking I've got a centre half jumping over the top of me. But sometimes that's how the games pan out. Again, we've got to try and be brave in that, and not make that be the case of how the game's playing out.
One more. You mentioned Chris Hull. Has he got a new full title or anything like that?
He's first team coach at the minute, but I don't think that people get obsessed with his titles. That's basically the players have been told he's working with us, and to give him the respect that I would expect any member of staff to get him.
So is there someone else working with 23s now alongside Jarrett?
No, but we've got plenty of members of staff that will help out if